When the whole family whispered that my wife Lulama was cursed, I kept quiet. But when my brother's wife cried out for mercy in labor for 72 hours straight, they all turned to the woman they once called a witch Ajani, married Lulama in a quiet ceremony, but there was no joy in his family's eyes. Lulama, the daughter of a herbalist, was gentle, wise, and calm like a peaceful river. She didn't talk much, but when she did, her words made sense. Still, Ajani's family didn't like her. They believed a woman should follow old ways, and Lulama was different. She didn't dress or behave like the women they knew. They said she was too quiet, too proud, too strange. People in the village started whispering, "Why did he marry her? She's not one of us." But Ajani didn't care. He loved her. He believed in her. But as 2 years passed with no sign of a baby, the whispers grew louder. People started looking at Lulama with suspicion. They said she brought bad luck, that her herbalist blood was cursed. His family, especially his mother, became colder. They stopped inviting her to family gatherings. They said she didn't belong, that she must have tied Ajani's womb. Lulama heard it all, but she said nothing. She smiled when she needed to, cooked their food, and carried the shame quietly. Ajani saw the pain in her eyes, but didn't know how to fix it. He stayed by her side, but the silence between them grew heavier. What started as a love story was slowly turning into a quiet storm, and nobody, not even Lulama, could see what was coming next. As months turned into years, and Lulama's womb stayed silent, people around her changed. At first, there were quiet glances and soft murmurs behind her back, but soon, the whispers became loud words that stabbed her heart. "She's barren," they said. "She's the reason there's no child in that house." Some even went as far as saying she must have done something spiritual to close Ajani's womb. The kind villagers who once greeted her now looked away. Children were told not to play near her garden. Mothers held their babies tighter when she walked past. It was like everyone suddenly believed she was dangerous. In Ajani's own family, the distance grew like a thick wall. His mother, who once smiled politely at Lulama, now completely avoided her. If Lulama entered a room, she left. If Lulama cooked, she refused to eat. She claimed that food from a barren woman brought bad luck. Ajani's sisters joined in, mocking Lulama with sharp jokes hidden behind fake smiles. No one cared about her feelings. No one asked how she was doing. They only saw one thing, that her belly had not grown. Then came the biggest blow. Ajani's younger brother Madhu got married, and within months, his wife announced her pregnancy. The family danced with joy. They sang loudly, cooked feasts, and praised Madhu's wife as the true blessing of the family. All eyes turned to Lulama, and the comparison burned like fire. They didn't say much to her face, but their eyes screamed it. "That should have been you." They said Madhu's wife had broken the curse in the family, as if Lulama was the curse herself. Lulama didn't shout. She didn't cry in front of them. But deep inside, something was breaking. The love she had tried to grow in that house was slowly turning into ashes. Ajani saw everything happening to Lulama. He saw the stares, heard the cruel words, and noticed how his own family pushed her aside like she didn't matter. It broke his heart, but he didn't know what to do. He loved Lulama more than anything, but he also feared what would happen if he stood up to his family. He was caught in the middle, between the woman he chose and the people who raised him, so he stayed quiet. He thought his silence was peacekeeping, but to Lulama, it felt like abandonment. Each time his mother insulted her, he looked away. Each time someone said she was cursed, he said nothing. Not because he believed it, he didn't, but because he didn't want more fights. Their home already felt cold. He thought staying quiet would protect the little warmth left, but Lulama noticed. She noticed when he didn't defend her. She noticed when he pretended not to hear the insults. And though she never shouted at him, her silence began to speak louder than any words. She stopped waiting for him at dinner. She stopped telling him about her day. She spent more and more time in her small garden, touching the leaves like they were her only friends. At night, when Ajani came to bed, she was already asleep on the small mat in the corner, or at least pretending to be. They were under the same roof, but the distance between them grew wide, like a river with no bridge. Ajani missed her laughter. He missed the way she used to sing while cooking, or how her eyes lit up when she talked about her plants. But now, her eyes held no light, only quiet sadness. He wanted to fix things, to hold her and say everything would be okay. But every time he opened his mouth, the words refused to come out. He didn't know how to fight his family without tearing the whole house apart. So, he stayed silent. and Lulama slowly faded into her own world, a world where she no longer expected love to speak up for her. The day of Madu's baby shower arrived, and the whole family was excited. The compound was full of decorations, music, and dancing. Laughter filled the air, and people brought gifts wrapped in shiny paper. It was supposed to be a happy day, and even though she wasn't feeling joyful, Lulama showed up. She dressed simply, her hair tied neatly, and brought a small hand-woven gift for the baby. She didn't want to stay long, but she wanted to show respect. She stood quietly in a corner, smiling politely at the noise around her. When it was time for speeches and jokes, Madu's wife stood up, her belly round with life, her face glowing with pride. She looked around and thanked everyone for their love. Then she turned toward Lulama and said with a teasing smile, "And thank you, Sister Lulama, for keeping the family's fertility balance." Everyone burst into laughter, loud, mocking laughter. Some people clapped. Others bent over, laughing even harder, as if it was the funniest joke of the year. Lulama froze. Her smile disappeared. Her hands felt cold, but she didn't say a word. She didn't cry. She just gave a small nod, stood up quietly, and walked away. Nobody followed her. Nobody noticed how heavy her steps were. Outside it had started to rain. Still, she didn't rush. She walked home slowly, the water soaking her dress, her hair sticking to her face. She didn't carry an umbrella. She didn't even try to cover herself. She just walked, like the rain matched the storm inside her. When she got home, she didn't light a lamp. She went straight to her small wooden box. Inside were the herbs she had kept, carefully dried, tied in cloth, and stored with hope. The ones she had used every month, praying for a miracle. That night, she lit a fire and dropped each herb into the flame, one by one. No tears, no shouting, only silence. The fire glowed in the dark, and the smoke rose into the air like a farewell. It wasn't just herbs she burned. It was the last piece of hope she had been quietly holding on to. The day everyone had been waiting for finally came. Madu's wife went into labor. At first, there was joy and excitement. The family danced around, women sang songs, and people prepared food, expecting a baby to arrive within a few hours. But as the hours passed, the smiles faded. The laughter stopped. Something was wrong. The baby wasn't coming. Madu's wife was in deep pain, crying louder and louder. Her voice echoed through the walls like thunder. By nightfall, people started to worry. The family called a doctor, then another one. They checked her, gave her medicine, but nothing helped. The pain continued, and the baby stayed inside. One full night passed, and still no delivery. Then came the second night. No sleep for anyone. The house was full of fear. Madu's wife screamed again and again, her voice sounding weaker each time. People covered their ears, children cried, and the once happy home turned into a place of fear. On the third day, panic filled the air. The doctors had no answers. They said everything looked normal, but the baby refused to come. The elders gathered and shook their heads. They whispered to each other, calling it a spiritual block. They said the path was closed, that something beyond medicine was holding back the child. Some said someone had cursed her. Others said maybe the ancestors were angry. Everyone had a different story, but no one had a solution. Madu's wife, once full of pride, now lay helpless and exhausted. Her hands grabbed the sheets, her eyes wide with fear. Sweat covered her face. Her voice was almost gone from crying. The family that once laughed so loudly was now completely quiet. No one dared make a joke. No one smiled. It felt like time had stopped. Every second passed slowly, like the whole compound was holding its breath. Even the birds stopped singing. The air was heavy. Fear sat in every corner like a shadow that wouldn't leave. People started to whisper Lulama's name, not in insult this time, but in worry. The same woman they had blamed was now being mentioned with hope. Something had changed, something none of them could explain. The storm that had started 3 days ago had shaken not only the walls, but the hearts of everyone in that house. Madu's mother, the same woman who once couldn't stand Lulama, now stood trembling outside the room where her daughter-in-law had been screaming for 3 days. Her pride was gone. Her voice shook. Her face was pale with fear. The family had tried everything. Doctors, prayers, elders, even spiritual baths. But nothing worked. The baby still hadn't come. And now Madu's wife was getting weaker. Everyone was scared. People whispered that she might not survive. The air was filled with tension. Then, something happened no one expected. Madu's mother, the one who had once refused to eat food touched by Lulama, walked toward her slowly. Her steps were unsure, her hands shaking. She stood in front of Lulama, the woman she used to insult, and with tears in her eyes, she said softly, "You are a herbalist's daughter. Please, I beg you, do something. Help her. Forgive us." Everyone around was shocked. The proud mother who once looked down on Lulama was now begging. Ajani stood nearby and watched, his heart pounding. He didn't know what his wife would say. This was the same woman his mother had humiliated, laughed at, and blamed for not having a child. But now she was being asked to save someone else's. Lulama looked at her quietly. She said nothing for a moment. Her face was calm. No anger, no pride, just quiet strength. Then she gave one small nod, just one. She didn't say yes. She didn't speak any words, but everyone understood. She would help, not because they deserved it, but because that was the kind of woman she was. Without saying anything more, Lulama walked into the delivery room. Her steps were steady, her eyes clear. The same people who once called her a curse now looked at her with hope. Even the nurses moved aside for her. Ajani stood frozen, watching the woman he loved step into the room like a quiet warrior. She didn't wear white robes, she didn't carry charms, but everyone could feel something had shifted. In that moment, the house was silent. No more insults, no more blame, just quiet prayers. Everyone knew something powerful was about to happen, not because of magic, but because of the heart of a woman they had once called a witch. Inside the small warm room, the air was filled with fear and sweat. Madu's wife was weak, her voice nearly gone from screaming for days. Nurses stood helpless, not knowing what else to do. The doctors had tried all they could. Everyone outside waited in silence, too scared to speak. Then Lulama walked in, calm, focused, and quiet. She asked for a bowl of hot water and a few herbs from her pouch. The herbs smelled strong but soothing. Slowly, she placed them into the hot water, creating a soft, rising steam. The room started to smell of peace. Lulama held the bowl near Madu's wife's face, letting her breathe in the calming vapor. As she did this, she gently pressed certain spots on her arms, neck and lower back, places her mother once taught her to touch during difficult births. She didn't rush, she didn't panic. Her hands moved with care and knowledge, as if she had done it many times before. While her hands worked, her lips moved softly. No one could hear the words clearly, but the feeling in the room changed. She was whispering words passed down from her mother, from her grandmother, words of strength, peace, and life. Slowly, Madu's wife stopped shaking. Her breathing calmed, her body responded. After nearly 2 hours of steady work, something incredible happened. The baby finally came. A strong cry filled the room. A beautiful baby boy, healthy, alive. The nurses rushed forward with tears in their eyes. One even dropped to her knees. Madu's wife cried too, but not in pain, in relief. The danger was gone. Outside the room, when the news spread, people gasped. Then they cried. The same mouths that had once called Lulama names now whispered blessings for her. The same people who once refused her food now wanted to touch her hands and thank her. Even Madu's mother wept openly and held Lulama's hand tightly, saying over and over, "Thank you. Forgive us." Lulama didn't smile. She didn't boast. She simply nodded and looked at the baby. Her job was done. Her heart was still hurting, but her hands had done something no one else could. She had brought peace to a troubled birth, and now the whole family saw her in a new light. They didn't see a witch anymore. They saw a woman of wisdom, a woman of healing, a woman whose silence was stronger than all their noise. That night, after everyone had calmed down and the baby was fast asleep, Ajani sat beside Lulama in the quiet of their small room. He looked at her, his eyes heavy with guilt and emotion. She sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap, calm as always. But behind her calmness was a storm she had carried alone for too long. Ajani finally spoke, his voice low and shaky. "They should know the truth," he said. "They should know it was never you." Lulama turned to him, gently shook her head, and whispered, "It doesn't matter now." But it did matter, to him. He remembered the day they got the doctor's results, how broken he felt knowing the problem was his, not hers. He remembered how she hugged him, told him not to worry, told him she would carry the burden, that his dignity mattered more than the whispers of strangers. From that day, she allowed everyone to think she was the one who couldn't conceive. She watched their mocking eyes, heard their cruel words, and never once defended herself. She let Ajani walk with pride while she became the topic of gossip. She smiled when people pointed fingers. She cooked for people who disrespected her, all for him. Ajani's voice cracked as he confessed to his parents and the elders who had gathered to thank Lulama. "You all owe her more than an apology," he said. "She protected me because I was the one who couldn't give her a child." There was silence. Long, deep silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The shame fell on everyone like a heavy rain. Madhu's mother covered her face with her hands. Madhu looked down at the floor. Even the elders who once called Lulama cursed couldn't raise their heads. Lulama said nothing. She just sat there, her face calm, not proud, not bitter, just peaceful. In that moment, they all realized something powerful. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes strength is choosing love over ego. Sometimes it's carrying someone else's shame, just so they can breathe. Lulama had done that for years, without asking for thanks or praise. The truth hit everyone hard. The same woman they mocked was the one who had shown the deepest kind of love. And for the first time, they truly saw her, not as a herbalist's daughter, not as a barren woman, not as a witch, but as a queen in her own right. The next morning, something happened that no one expected. The village, once filled with gossip and judgment, began to stir with a different kind of energy. People gathered, not for Madhu's baby's naming ceremony, but for someone else entirely. They came with food, drums, and folded wrappers, not to celebrate a new child, but to honor Lulama. Yes, Lulama, the same woman they had whispered about, the one they once blamed, mocked, and avoided. Now they came with open hearts, trying to make things right. It started with the village elders. One of them, who had once called her cursed, stood up and said, "Today we celebrate not a birth, but a woman of deep mercy and quiet strength." The crowd listened, heads lowered. Then came Madhu's wife, the one who had once joked at Lulama's expense. She knelt down before her and said softly, "Please forgive me." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she held Lulama's hands. Food was served, not by Lulama, but to her. Stews, yam, rice, and fruits were placed before her by the same women who used to turn their backs. One woman gave her a wrapper she had sewn with her own hands. Another gave her bangles. Even the children danced around her, calling her Mama Mercy. They called her that because of how she forgave everyone, without shouting, without revenge. She helped save a baby. She gave peace where others gave pain, and she did it all with calmness. Ajani stood by her side, quiet, proud, watching how the woman he loved was finally seen the way she always deserved, not because she had a child, not because she shouted or fought, but because her heart was full of grace. That day, the village didn't just celebrate Lulama, they learned from her. They saw how wrong they were, and for the first time in a long while, joy came from humility. Music filled the air, not with noise, but with meaning. And as the sun set, Lulama smiled, not for recognition, but because kindness had finally won. A whole year passed after that special celebration. Life moved slowly, but steady. Then, one quiet morning, Lulama woke up feeling different. A soft, gentle change she hadn't expected. It was not a miracle or something they planned for, just nature taking its course. Soon, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The village rejoiced, not because they finally got a child from her, but because the story had come full circle. Everyone who had once doubted her now smiled with respect. But the truth was, Lulama didn't need this child to prove her worth. Her real gift was something deeper, her courage to carry pain silently, her strength to heal when others turned away, and her heart that chose mercy over anger. Even if she had never had a child, her name was already carved into the hearts of the people. She was the woman who stood tall when everyone else bowed to fear and superstition, the one who changed the story from shame to honor without a word of complaint. Lulama showed them all what it meant to be truly strong, not in loud victories, but in quiet kindness. She healed more than a womb. She healed broken minds and hardened hearts. Her legacy was not just about having a baby, but about the power of patience, love, and forgiveness. And that, in the end, was the greatest miracle of all. If you believe in the power of kindness and strength behind every silent struggle, share this story with someone who needs hope today. Hit like, follow for more inspiring tales, and comment your thoughts, because every voice matters in breaking the cycle of judgment and shame. Let's spread love, not rumors. Love sparkles,